Hello everyone, and welcome to the Unanswered Questions True Crime Podcast.
I have spent hours and hours investigating this.
He basically told her that people have been killed. Journalists, independent investigators, people like that disappeared. It frightened her to the bone.
There's more to the story than meets the eye.
There were rumors of torture and homicide and sexual abuse, all sorts of egregious, horrendous crimes.
He was polygraphed 3 times. Each of those 3 showed evasions.
His resumes were a skeleton of truth.
He was mad at the world, and particularly mad at the government.
The study that he commissioned described a fictional terrorist attack.
If people have died over this, it means you're getting close to the truth.
You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to say, what the fuck?
Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Clinton body count. So to start this part 2, we have Charles Messner, Assistant Secretary of Commerce for International Economic Policy, died on May 3rd of 1996. John Horn was placed on a Commerce Department contract that allowed him to retain his security clearance by Charles Messner. Charles Messner died on the plane with Ron Brown. Then we have Gary Johnson, who was a witness. He was attacked June 26th of 1992, beaten near death and left for dead. Someone in the Clinton organization sent 3 goons to beat up and also almost murder Gary Johnson, who was Jennifer Flower's neighbor. Gary Johnson had a security camera installed at his condominium, and by chance, he had many tapes of Bill entering Jennifer's condominium while governor and married to Hillary. Gary's tapes were taken. Then we have Johnny Franklin Lawhon Jr. He was a witness, died March 29th of 1998. In the spring of 1997, a tornado ripped through some junked cars at Johnny's transmission and opened up the trunk of a car that proved to have a box of Whitewater records in it, including a copy of a $27,000 cashier's check drawn on Madison and payable to Bill Clinton. Johnny Franklin Lawhon Sr. realized what he was looking at and turned the box of documents over to the FBI. According to police, Lawhon Jr., the son and a friend, hit a telephone pole at a high rate of speed after their car became airborne and left the road. They had driven less than 1/4 of a mile at the time of the accident. This manner of death is similar to the single vehicle accidents that killed Paula Grober and Neil Moody. Then we have John Jones, Julian Assange's lawyer. He died April 18th of 2016. John Jones QC was killed when struck by a commuter train on his way to work. The police immediately declared the death as non-suspicious. The QC initially said it was not suicide. Great Britain has the highest per capita presence of surveillance cameras of any nation in the world, yet no video has been forthcoming as to just how Jones wound up in front of that train. John Jones was working to prevent the extradition of Julian Assange to the United States. Assange and WikiLeaks have produced some of the most damaging information about Hillary Clinton's scandals, such as the emails. Then we have John F. Kennedy Jr., potential candidate for senator from New York, died July 16th of 1999. Within days of an NBC Dateline story hinting at a possible run for the Senate seat currently assumed to be the property of Hillary Clinton, JFK Jr. and his wife and sister-in-law died when the Piper Saratoga 2TC JFK Jr. was piloting crashed into the ocean just short of Martha's Vineyard. The Newsweek issue for the following Monday, which NBC Dateline had reported would announce JFK Jr.'s candidacy, was yanked from distributors and destroyed. Even before the wreckage of the plane had been found, the media was saturated with news stories declaring the weather to have been very hazy. The weather was VFR conditions and 8-mile visibility, plus weather radar and witnesses on Martha's Vineyard all reported clear skies, making it impossible for JFK Jr. to know which way was up. He also had working instruments in the aircraft. As was the case when TWA-800 was shot down, the United States Navy took control of the crash site, ordering an unprecedented 5-mile wide no-fly zone while the wreckage of the aircraft was recovered and taken to a military base. Reporters Cindy Adams and Andrew Goldman have documented the planting of false information about JFK Jr. in the media in the days following his crash. The feeding of false information to the press proves there is a cover-up. The existence of a cover-up is why JFK Jr. gets an entry on this list. According to some reports, Mrs. Kennedy was pregnant. Then we come to Sean Lucas. He was an attorney, died August 2nd of 2016. On July 3rd of 2016, Sean Lucas and filmmaker Ricardo Verbala served the DNC Services Corp and chairperson Debbie Wasserman Schultz at DNC's headquarters in Washington, D.C. in the fraud class action suit against the Democratic Party on behalf of Bernie Sanders supporters. This was before WikiLeaks released documents proving the DNC was working against the Sanders campaign during the 2016 primary. Sean was found dead by his girlfriend, he'd been in perfect health and did not do drugs. The authorities are refusing to disclose the cause of death even after 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the DNC is trying to delay the lawsuit until after the November election by saying Lucas did not properly serve the papers, with Lucas conveniently unable to testify on his own behalf. Then we have Mary Katie Mahoney, White House intern, died July 6th of 1997. An attractive 25-year-old, Mary was a former White House intern for Bill Clinton, working as the assistant manager at a Starbucks coffee shop in Georgetown. In the pre-trial publicity surrounding Paula Jones' lawsuit, Mike Iskoff had dropped hints that a former White House staffer with the initial M was about to go public with a story of sexual harassment at 1600 Pennsylvania. Just days later, gunmen entered the Starbucks while the crew was cleaning up after closing. Mary's two associates, Aaron Goodrich, 18, and Emery Evans, 25, were taken to a room and shot. Mary herself had 5 bullets in her from at least 2 different handguns, most likely with silencers. A total of 10 shots were fired, none of them heard by neighbours in the densely populated Georgetown section. Mary was shot in the chest, her face, and in the back of the head. Someone wanted her very dead, or to send a message. Even though more than 4,000 remained in the store, the police have categorised the triple murder as a robbery, even as they acknowledged the execution-style killings. There was no sign of forced entry, which means that either Mary or one of the employees let the killers in at least 1 hour after closing. That means that the killers included at least one person known to the victims. One report is that the Starbucks was still locked when the bodies were found the next morning. Robbers don't bother locking doors. George Stephanopoulos, Monica Lewinsky, and Chelsea Clinton were all regulars at the Starbucks. Carl Cooper, the man charged with the Starbucks murders on the basis of a confession, has now recanted that confession, claiming that it was obtained under coercion, not unlike that of James Earl Ray. An affidavit filed by NOAA's Sonia Stewart confirms that the Department of Commerce was selling trade mission seats in exchange for campaign donations and illegally blocking FOIA requests. Named in the affidavit as the White House staffer directly connected to this obstruction was Doris Matusi. Doris's assigned intern during this period was Mary Mahoney. Then we have Lieutenant General David J. McLeod, commander of Alaskan Command, 11th Air Force in the Alaskan North American Aerospace Defense Command region, headquartered at Elmdorf Air Force Base, Alaska, died July 26th of 1998. On July 26th of 1998, McLeod died when his Yak-54 aerobatic plane crashed, allegedly from sabotage. McLeod was one of several flag officers, including Admiral Border, who had assembled evidence against President Clinton, leading to his arrest. Then we have Christine M. Murzian, White House intern, died 1st of August 1998. On that day, yet another young female government intern with the initial M, Christine M. Murzian, was murdered, beaten to death with a heavy object near Georgetown University. Eventually, Mike Iskoff's former White House staffer finally surfaced, and it was not Mary Mahoney or Christian M. Murzian, but Monica Lewinsky. Then we come to Florence Martin, accountant subcontracting to the CIA, died October 30th of 1994, related to the Barry Seal case, dead by 3 gunshot wounds to the head. At the time of her death, she had the account numbers and a PIN for a bank account in the Caymans in the name of Barry Seal, which held $1.4 million. Immediately following her death, the money was moved to some place in the Virgin Islands. Then we have George Mattson, Clinton associate, died May 15th of 1997, was shot in the head and it was declared a suicide. Then we come to James McDougal, who was a crook, died March 8th of 1998. Jim McDougal was serving a 3-year sentence for bank fraud at the Fort Worth Medical Center in Texas, a facility operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons for inmates who need medical attention. Just prior to another round of testimony before Kenneth Starr's grand jury, and while the reporters who were covering the story were 2 hours away covering a standoff situation in Waco that just went away, Jim McDougal suffered a heart attack while in solitary confinement. That may have been brought on by diuretics forced on him. When Jim McDougal was finally taken out of solitary, instead of attempting to defibrillate his heart with equipment on hand at the facility, he was driven over to John Peter Smith Hospital, not the closest hospital to the Fort Worth Federal Medical Center. John Peter Smith Hospital is a welfare hospital where, in the words of one local, they let interns practice on deadbeats, whatever that means. The single most damning fact that came out of the McDougal death was his injection with Lassie, a diuretic, to force his giving of a urine sample for drug testing, even though McDougal wasn't a known drug user. Lassie is contraindicated in cases of heart disease and can cause excessive duress, blood volume reduction, circulatory collapse, and vascular thrombosis or blood clots. If a matching potassium supplement is not administered at the same time, Lassie can kill. McDougal may have been taking the heart medication Digitalin, which cannot be mixed with Lasix. Several inmates have gone public with the claim that McDougal was given a heavy injection of Lasix right after he ate lunch, but the prison has not allowed these prisoners to be interviewed or to release McDougal's medical records. The Fort Worth Star-Telegram recently acquired the official report of the McDougal death via a Freedom of Information Act request and found that doctors ignored signs of McDougal's imminent death. Then we have Charles Wilburn Miller. He was vice president and board member for Alltel, died January 12th of 1999. Alltel was the computer company that wrote the White House Big Brother computer system. He was found shot to death with 2 guns. Multiple shots had been fired and it was declared a suicide. Then we have Ron Miller. He was a witness, died October 12th. Ron Miller, investigated by authorities over the sale of his company Gage Corp to Dynamic Energy Resources Incorporated, was the man who tape recorded Gene and Norma Lum and turned those tapes and other records over to congressional oversight investigators. The Lums were sentenced to prison for campaign finance violations, using straw donors to conceal the size of their contributions to various candidates. Indeed, Dynamic Energy Resources Inc. had hired Ron Brown's son Michael solely for the purpose of funneling $60,000 through him to the Commerce Secretary, according to Lalanda Hill's testimony. Reportedly a healthy man, Ron suddenly took ill on October 3rd and steadily worsened until his death 9 days later. This pattern fits ricin poisoning. Owing to the strangeness of the illness, doctors at the Integris Baptist Medical Center referred the matter to the Oklahoma State Medical Examiner's Office. The Oklahoma State Medical Examiner's Office promptly ran tests on samples of Ron Miller's blood, but has refused to release the results or even confirm that the tests were ever completed. Then we have John Miller, State Director of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence Committee. Died June 4th of 2000. Millis had just helped the HPSCI complete its investigation into alleged CIA cocaine smuggling, which predictably, given that Mills himself was a longtime CIA agent, concluded that the CIA was innocent of all allegations of wrongdoing. Fairfax, Virginia police were tipped off by an anonymous phone call claiming that a man was threatening suicide in a motel room. Police arrived to find Millis dead of a gunshot wound. As was the case with Vince Foster and Sandy Hume, the death was immediately declared a suicide. Then we have Joe Montano, chairman to the DNC before Debus Wasserman Schultz and regional director for Tim Kaine, died July 25th of 2016. Supposedly he died of a heart attack right after the WikiLeaks email dump proving the DNC had worked to sabotage Bernie Sanders and hand the nomination to Hillary Clinton. Joe was 47 with no history of heart problems. Then we have Neil Moody, who died August 25th of 1996. Following Vince Foster's murder, Lisa Foster married James Moody, a judge in Arkansas, on January 1st of 1996. Near the time Susan McDougal first went to jail for contempt, Judge Moody's son Neil died in a car crash. There were other reports that Neil Moody had discovered something very, very unsettling amongst his stepmother's private papers and was threatening to go public with it just prior to the beginning of the Democratic National Convention. He was alleged to have been talking to Bob Woodward of the Washington Post about a blockbuster story. Witnesses said they saw Moody sitting in his car arguing with another person just prior to his car suddenly speeding off out of control and hitting a brick wall. Then we have Tony Moser, who was an anti-corruption journalist and died June 10th of 2000. Tony Moser, a critic of the Arkansas Democratic Party political machine, was killed as he crossed a street in Pine Bluff 10 days after being named a columnist for the Democrat Gazette newspaper and 2 days after writing an article which exposed the looting of programs designed to obtain money from deadbeat parents to give them to their children. The police declared that no crime had been committed, and since the anonymous driver of the 1995 Chevy pickup truck that struck and killed Moser was not intoxicated, nor was he speeding. In Arkansas, that apparently makes it legal to run down a politically unpopular journalist. Then we have Larry Nichols, former official at ADFA and author of the Clinton Chronicles. The man who broke many of the Clinton scandal stories had several attempts made on his life, but is still alive. Then we have Paul Olson, federal witness in investigations to drug money, corruption, and Chicago politics. Died September 8th of 1994. Paul had just finished 2 days of FBI interviews when his plane ride home crashed, killing Paul and 130 others. The September 15th, 1994 Temp Tribune newspaper reported that the FBI suspected that a bomb had brought down the aeroplane. Then we have Jerry Luther Parks. He was head of Clinton's gubernatorial security team in Little Rock. Died September 26th of 1993. He was gunned down in his car at the intersection of Chanel Parkway and Cantrell Road near Little Rock. Parks was shot through the rear window of his car. The assailant then pulled around to the driver's side of Parks' car and shot him 3 more times with a 9mm pistol. His family reported that shortly before his death, unknown persons were following him and their home had been broken into, despite a top-quality alarm system. Parks had been compiling a dossier CIA on Clinton's illicit activities, that dossier was stolen. When news of the discovery of Vince Foster's body came over the news, Parks is reported to have said, "I'm a dead man." He had told his wife that Bill Clinton's people were cleaning house and he was next on the list. Then we have Dennis Patrick, a court clerk, had millions of dollars laundered through his account at Lassiter & Co. without his knowledge. 4 attempts were made on his life. Then we come to C. Victor Raiser II, National Finance Co-Chairman Clinton for Presidential Campaign. Montgomery Raiser, son of C. Victor Raiser II, died July 30th of 1992. Both of these men died in a private plane crash in Alaska 1 day before a scheduled interview with John Hillier. The crash was blamed on the pilot who survived. 4 others not connected to Clinton died in the crash. D. Myers described Raiser as a major player in the Clinton organization. Victor Raiser was also chairman of Mobile Telecom Technologies Corp., whose subsidiary SkyTel Corp. Is an international paging company used by federal police agencies such as the FBI. Victor Raiser was a Washington lawyer who was counsel to the Washington firm of Jones Day, Reeves and Pugh until 1991. At his death, he was the National Finance Co-Chairman of the Clinton for President campaign. The campaign's press secretary, D. Myers, described him as a major player in the Clinton organization. He and his wife had been friends of the Clintons for 10 years. He was the past National Finance Chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He served on the boards of the Democratic Business Council and the Center for National Policy and the Board of Advisors of the Democratic Leadership Council. On May 29th of 1993, President Clinton announced that he had selected Raiser's widow, Molly Raiser, 50, former Democratic co-chair of the Women's Campaign Fund, to be his protocol chief and stated that he planned to nominate her for confirmation as an ambassador. Then we have Seth Conard Rich, who was DNC Voter Expansion Data Director. He died July 10th of 2016. Seth Conard Rich was shot several times in the back a block from his home in DC's neighborhoods of Bloomingdale. The police declared it a robbery gone bad, but nothing had been taken. Seth still had his wallet, watch and cell phone. One possible motive for his assassination lies with the WikiLeaks dump of 20,000 DNC emails, which proved the DNC was rigging the primaries to favor Hillary Clinton. The scandal forced DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign, although Hillary's people tried to portray this as a hack by Russia to cast Hillary as a victim of international intrigue. WikiLeaks, while not identifying the leak, denied it was Russia and stated it was an internal leak. If Seth, who was in a perfect position to acquire the data, were the leak, that would be ample motive to murder him as a warning to others inside the DNC to not blow any whistles. Shortly after the killing, Redditors and social media users were pursuing a lead, saying that Rich was en route to the FBI the morning of his murder, apparently attending to speak to special agents about an ongoing court case possibly involving the Clinton family. Our reward has been offered for information on this murder. Then we have Major General William Robinson, Deputy Commanding General V Corps Europe, Colonel William Desberger, V Corps Chief of Operation and Plans, Colonel Robert Kelly, V Corps Chief of Intelligence, Spec Gary Rhodes, Crew Chief. They all died February 23rd of 1993. All were killed when their Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter crashed in Wabazin, Germany. No cause was ever determined. V Corps figured predominantly in the US Bosnia-Serbia peacekeeping operations along with the carrier Roosevelt. 3 men and 8 others associated with Clinton's visit to the Roosevelt all died within 4 months of each other. Then we have Dr. Ronald Rogers, who was a dentist from Arkansas, killed in a plane crash as he was on his way to an interview with a London Sunday Telegraph, reported to reveal some Clinton dirt. Then we have Charles Ruff, who was a Clinton lawyer. He died November 20th of 2000. Charles Ruff was one of Clinton's attorneys during the impeachment trial and was known to have inside information on the White House email scandal as well. Original reports were that he died in an accident in his home, although no details were given. Then the report changed to claim that he was found in his bedroom unconscious, then declared dead on arrival at the hospital. The authorities will provide no other details other than the usual and quite premature assurances that there was no foul play involved. Then there was Colonel James Sabo, who died in 1991. Suddenly about to blow the whistle on drug running activity taking place on the naval base where he was stationed, Colonel James Sabo was found by his wife in the backyard of their home with his head blown off with a shotgun. The Navy ruled it a suicide, and all more than 40 deaths by individuals concerned with drug trafficking on military bases have been declared suicides despite evidence that murder was involved. Then we have Walter Schweb, who was a Clinton White House chef, died June 23rd of 2015. Walter Schweb was hired by the Clinton White House and continued to serve the Bush administration. He was reported missing by his family when he failed to return from a hike. His body was found more than 1.5 miles off the track he was supposed to have been on at the bottom of a river, and no official cause of death has been released. Then there was Tom Switch, who was a Waco investigator and candidate for governor, died February 26th of 2013. Switch served as a chief of staff for former US Senator John Danforth's investigation of the federal government's actions in connection with the 1993 FBI siege of the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. He had announced his candidacy for governor just 1 month before his death and was found with a gunshot wound to the left temple. Dom Switch was right-handed. 1 month later, his media director Robert Spence Jackson was found dead of a similar wound. Then we have Bill Shelton. He was an Arkansas state trooper and fiancé of Kathy Ferguson, died June of 1994. Allegedly committed suicide by shooting himself at the gravesite of his fiancée. Officer Shelton was the fiancé of Kathy Ferguson, who was the ex-wife of Trooper Danny Ferguson. Kathy Ferguson also supposedly committed suicide in June of 1994 when she shot herself in her living room. Oddly, next to the body were her packed bags, as if she was expecting to be going somewhere. Danny Ferguson was a co-defendant along with Bill Clinton and Paula Corbin Jones's sexual harassment suit. Kathy Ferguson was reported as a corroborating witness for Miss Jones. Then we have Victor Thorne. He was an independent journalist, died August 1st of 2016, found dead of a gunshot on top of a mountain near his home. Thorne has been a thorn in the side of the Clintons for decades, writing books and articles for American Free Press that exposed many of the Clintons' dark secrets, including the drug running out of Mena, Arkansas. While officially declared a suicide, it is worth noting that Victor Thorne was at the height of his success, with a long line of successful books including Crowning Clinton, Why Hillary Shouldn't Be in the White House, and the Hillary and Bill trilogy, which were strong sellers. The trilogy had just been purchased for translation and foreign distribution. Then we have Paul Tully, Democratic National Committee political director, died September 24th of 1992, found dead in a hotel room in Little Rock, Arkansas of unknown causes. No autopsy was allowed. Described by Clinton as a dear friend and trusted advisor, Tully authored several key strategies for Clinton and the party. Paul Tully, 48, Democratic National Committee political director and architect of a strategy to make the party competitive again in presidential elections, was found dead in his hotel room on September 24th of 1992 in Little Rock, Arkansas of unknown causes. Authorities speculated his death was from a heart attack or stroke. In a press release, then presidential candidate Clinton called Mr. Tully a dear and trusted advisor. He said he was deeply saddened by the loss. Tully devised a strategy of targeting states based on their value in the Electoral College and coordinating the presidential campaign with state and congressional races. Then we have John Parnell Walker. He was an RTC investigator, died August 15th of 1993, mysteriously fell to his death from an apartment balcony. He was investigating the Morgan Gauntry scandal, the same apartment which was alleged to have been a secret getaway which Vince Foster may have visited. Then we have Kelvin Walraven, a drug witness, died 30th of the 7th, 1994. 24-year-old Walraven was a key witness in Jocelyn Elder's son's drug case. 10 days after Elder's son was convicted of trafficking in cocaine, Walraven was found dead in his apartment with a shotgun blast to the head. Tim Hover, a Little Rock police spokesperson, said no foul play was suspected. Then we come to Gary Webb, a journalist, died December 10th of 2004. Webb was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, exposed CIA drug trafficking operations in a series of books and reports for the San Jose Mercury News. He was found dead on Friday morning in what the police said was an apparent suicide. Webb had been shot in the head twice. Then there was Maynard Webb, Mena, Arkansas airport witness, died second half of 1994. Maynard Webb had stumbled on several aircraft whose tail numbers were being changed on a regular basis, was about to go public when he walked headfirst into a spinning propeller. Then we have Russell Welch, infected on or about the 21st of the 7th, 1991. He was infected with military-grade anthrax, but survived. Then there was Alan G. Witcher, oversaw Clinton's Secret Service detail, died April 19th of 1995. In October of 1994, Witcher was transferred to the Secret Service field office in the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Whatever warning was given to the BATF agents in that building did not reach Alan Witcher, who died in the bomb blast. Then we have Paul Wiltshire, Washington attorney investigating gun running out of Mena, Arkansas, died June 22nd of 1993, found dead on a toilet in his Washington apartment. No cause of death was ever reported by the coroner. At the time of his death, he was investigating connections between the October surprise during the 1980 federal election campaign and drug running and gun running out of Mena, Arkansas, as well as the BATF assault on the Waco, Texas Branch Davidians. Was planning on producing a television documentary on his findings. He delivered a 105-page affidavit to Janet Reno detailing the evidence he'd collected regarding the drug operation at Mena just 3 weeks before his death. Then we have Ed Willey, real estate attorney and Clinton fundraiser, died November 30th of 1993, died of a shotgun blast to the head, body found in deep woods in Virginia, ruled a suicide, no note was found, died on the same day his wife was sexually assaulted in the White House by Bill Clinton, intimately involved in several Clinton fundraising events. Then we have Gareth Williams, who was an MI6 agent, died August 16th of 2010. Gareth Williams, an MI6 spy who worked on both sides of the Atlantic, engaged in some unauthorized hacking by breaking into Bill Clinton's database of friends and connections, ostensibly given to a friend in the media. This breach caused a diplomatic nightmare for MI6's new director, Sir John Soares. Gareth was found naked, padlocked in a sports bag in his own bathtub. No fingerprints, palm prints, footprints, or traces of Williams' DNA were found at the scene. The key to the padlock was inside the bag underneath his body. As usual, was declared a suicide. The sheer absurdity of this claim provoked a public uproar, and the promoters of the suicide theory even went so far as to try to demonstrate how Williams could have inserted himself into the bag. But even this charade failed to convince anyone, and the police were finally forced to acknowledge Williams' murder, even to the point of admitting they had two suspects in the crime who were never arrested. Then we have John Augustus Wilson, former Washington, D.C. council member, died May 18th of 1993. Wilson claimed to have info on Whitewater, a political controversy that began with the real estate dealings of Bill and Hillary Clinton and their associates Jim and Susan McDougal in the Whitewater Development Corporation, a failed business venture in the 1970s and 1980s, and was willing to talk. Found hanged, declared a suicide. Then we have Jill Wilt, vice chairman of Arkla Inc., died December 21st of 1992, died in a one-person skiing accident. Willett had extensive ties with Clinton and Mac McLarty, whom he called by telephone just hours before his death. Then we have Theodore Williams Jr., Bertie Curry's brother, died December 16th of 1997. A passing car hit the brother of Presidential Secretary Betty Curry after his own car had somehow run off the road. Bill Clinton called Monica Lewinsky at 2 a.m. the next morning to tell her of the death and alert Monica that her name appeared on the Paula Jones witness list. Betty's brother had also been beaten shortly before Betty testified in a previous matter. Then we have Steve Willis, Robert Williams, Conway LeBeau, and Todd McLehan. They were Clinton bodyguards. All died February 28th of 1993. Executed by gunfire in the Waco, Texas assault on the Branch Davidians. All four were examined by a private doctor and died from nearly identical wounds to the left temple, so-called execution style. According to Linda Thompson, videotapes and other evidence indicates that none died from guns fired by Branch Davidians. In his address to the employees of the Treasury Department in the cash room on March 18th of 1993, Clinton said, "My prayers, and I'm sure yours, are still with the family of all of the four alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents who were killed in Waco. Todd McKeehan and Conway LeBeau of New Orleans, Steve Willis of Houston, and Robert Williams from my hometown of Little Rock. The three of those four were assigned to my security during the course of the primary or general election." However, the Little Rock, Arkansas office of the ATF confirmed that all four had at one point been bodyguards for Bill Clinton, 3 while he was campaigning for president and while he had been the governor of Arkansas. In the videotape by the American Justice Federation, Waco 2, The Big Lie continues, Linda Thompson demonstrates that 15 shots were fired from 6 separate weapons into and out of a room in which 3 of the 4 agents had entered through a window. 4 of those shots were fired from an overhead helicopter, an agent outside the window firing an MP5 submachine gun who also threw in a concussion grenade, fired at least 2 shots into the room. In the autopsies of these agents, 3 had virtually identical wounds to the left temple that exited through the rear of the head, execution style. A private physician treated all 4 of them. Then we have Barbara Weiss, Commerce Department staffer, died 29th of November 1996. As the scandals continued to swirl around the John Huang, one of Huang's associates, Barbara Weiss, was found dead in her locked office on the 4th floor of the Department of Commerce, partially nude, by one report completely nude, and covered with bruises. No cause of death has ever been announced, even though an autopsy was conducted prior to the next of kin being notified. Calls to the DC pathologist, Dr. Jean Medal, have gotten an assurance that the bruises were not from being beaten, but from nothing else. Despite claims of ongoing illness, no record of a hospital visit in the months leading up to her death has surfaced. Oddly enough, following the discovery of her body, Bill Clinton made an unscheduled return to the White House from Camp David, claiming he needed a book of poetry in order to complete his inauguration speech. Then we have Terrence Yakey, who was the first police officer to arrive at the Murrah building following the OK City bombing, died May 8th of 1996. Terrence Yakey had collected together a vast amounts of hard data on the bombing of the Murrah building. Terrence Yakey's patrol car was found abandoned along a dirt road, the front seat covered with blood. Officer Yakey himself was found a short distance away with 11 cut wounds on both arms and 2 in his throat, plus a gunshot wound through the head. No gun was ever found and the death was declared a suicide. His material on the OK City bombing was never found following the death. His life had been threatened previously. Then we have Edward Eugene Wiley. Edward Eugene Wiley Jr., a Clinton fundraiser whose wife Kathleen Wiley alleged on the CBS News magazine 60 Minutes that Bill Clinton had sexually assaulted her on November 29th of 1993. Kathleen also testified on the Paula Jones sexual harassment suit against Clinton. Edward was found dead in the Virginia woods and his death was ruled a suicide. Then we come to the infamous Jeffrey Epstein. Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, being held on federal charges of child sex trafficking, was found dead in his cell at the High Security Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan on August 10th of 2019. An official autopsy later declared the cause of death as suicide by hanging. His death led to conspiracy theories being relayed on social media, particularly relating to Bill Clinton and President Donald Trump. Hours after Epstein's death, Trump retweeted claims that Epstein's death was related to Clinton, including the hashtag Clinton Bodycount. Lynn Patton, a Trump appointee at HUD, said Hillary D and used the hashtag Vince Foster Part 2 in an Instagram post about Epstein's death. Political commentator Dinesh D'Souza attempted to use the time he spent in a federal correctional center to lend authority to the conspiracy theory that the Clintons were responsible for Epstein's death. Then we have Christopher Sin. Reporter Christopher Sin broke the news of a meeting on June 27th of 2016 on the Phoenix Sky Harbor tarmac between former President Bill Clinton and then Attorney General Loretta Lynch. The timing of the meeting happened during the 2016 presidential election when then candidate Hillary Clinton was under scrutiny for how she handled certain emails during her tenure as U.S. Secretary of State. Sine was found dead in his Alabama home on June 12th of 2021, and his death was investigated as a suicide. Several right-wing figures, including Lauren Boebert, Dan Bongino, and Charlie Kirk, as well as the pro-Trump cable news channel One American News Network, suggested that Sine had been murdered by the Clintons. Then there's Jovenel Moise. Haitian President Jovenel Moise was assassinated on July 7th of 2021 when gunmen attacked his residence in Perlin 5, a district of Pétionville. Martine Moise, the First Lady of Haiti, was hospitalized for wounds sustained during the attack. Some right-wing conspiracy theorists have claimed that the Clintons were involved in Moise's death, pointing to political controversies regarding aid given to Haiti by the Clinton Foundation, such as hurricane-proof classroom trailers that were found to be structurally unsafe and laced with formaldehyde. Following the QAnon conspiracy theory, which I'm going to cover in another episode of this podcast, who claim that Donald Trump is secretly waging war against a cabal of child traffickers that includes the Clintons, heavily discussed the idea that they had a hand in the assassination. Discussion of the unfounded claim caused the term Clintons to become a top trend on Twitter. Then we have Jean-Luc Brunel. Jean-Luc Brunel, suspected of being involved in a global pedophile ring organised by Epstein, died by suicide in prison before going on trial on February 19th of 2022. Senator Ted Cruz attempted to link Brunel's death to the Clintons by asking, "Anyone know where Hillary was this weekend?" Then we come to Mark Middleton. Mark Middleton, an Arkansas business leader, mutual friend of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, and former finance director for Clinton's presidential campaign and later special assistant to Clinton, was found dead hanging from a tree 30 miles from his home with a shotgun wound in his chest on May 7th of 2022. Middleton's family filed an injunction to prevent police photos of the scene from being released to the public, citing concerns that the images would encourage conspiracy theories. Judge Alice Gray will decide whether the photographs can be released, and the coroner's report ruled the death a suicide. No weapon was found near the body, however. Then we come to others. Fabricated tweets stating, "I have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton," were supposedly sent by figures such as celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, basketball player Kobe Bryant, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and Queen Elizabeth II prior to their deaths. Is the Clinton body count real, or is it, as everyone has said, not real, and is just a bunch of names that have been put together and is just a debunked theory? I'll let you, the listeners of this podcast, decide whether this actually is a real thing and whether the Clintons were involved in all these deaths, or whether it is all just one big hoax. With that, this case remains open, but with many unanswered questions that still remain unanswered. Please rate the show and let me know what you guys think about this and the many other cases I've covered. You can follow me on all major social media platforms, YouTube, BitChute, Dailymotion. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Links are all down below in the description. If you have a case you'd like me to have a look at or cover, don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm your host, and this has been the Unanswered Questions podcast. Until next time. Next on Unanswered Questions. The Storyville Slayer is the nickname given to an American serial killer who murdered at least 24 prostitutes and drug addicts, most of whom were women in New Orleans, Louisiana.